Hey guys, I was just watching Steve Turley. Steve Turley, you might know him. He's right here. Interesting guy, lots of very nice videos. But I think this whole Ireland referendum thing does provide a little hitch in some of the more simplistic views of Christian nationalism. I don't think, I think he understands the nuances, so this isn't a direct criticism of his, but it is this simplification of the world right now. Let me just close this shade so that it doesn't distract me. Oh, sorry. So, yeah, Steve Turley, interesting guy. Talks a lot about the resurgence of religion in Eastern Europe, Russia, Italy, lots of videos on countries where, especially the Orthodox Church starts to grow. And I do think that he does have a point with some of these countries, especially Poland and Hungary and the Czech Republic, that globalism did, to a certain extent, begin to encroach upon the individual identities of some of these countries the same way that Soviet communism did when some of them were part of the Warsaw Pact after World War II. So I don't really have an argument with that, but when you move to some of these countries that did live under liberal freedom for those years, you kind of get the opposite effect lately. And, this is obviously a problem for people who want to preserve they want to preserve the benefits of Western civilization. Now, in Turley's eyes, Western civilization is very much equal to Christian civilization. The fact of the matter is that there are a lot of differences between, the civilizations of the Orthodox Christian world, which would include Russia, the Caucasus, some of the Balkan countries like Bulgaria. You'd probably throw in, I think Romania is an Orthodox country. I could be wrong. And then there's some of the Catholic countries like Switzerland, France, which has become more and more secular since the 18th century, after the French Revolution, of course. Then you have Italy and Spain, still very much Catholic. Austria, I think, is a very Catholic country. Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, all very, very Catholic countries. So you're not talking about the same religious strictures, but also the character varies from country to country. So you had this example, and he had this video where he does talk a lot about the repeal of the Eighth Amendment in Ireland. So let's take a little listen, and then we'll move on. We'll talk a little bit about why I think it does throw a bit of a wrench into this concept of Christian nationalism. So take a listen.
All right there, everyone. Ireland, one of the last pro-life nations in Western Europe, has just voted overwhelmingly to legalize abortion. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. While the official results of yesterday's referendum to overturn the Eighth Amendment to the Irish Constitution have yet to be officially announced, exit polls do suggest an overwhelming victory for pro-abortionist forces. For those of you who don't know, the Eighth Amendment to the Irish Constitution protected unborn babies as well as their mothers by affirming their right to life, and that both the child and the mother share equal rights and protection under Irish law. Ireland's long been seen as one of the last bastions of pro-life sentiment in Western Europe, particularly as a result of this constitutional amendment. Ireland has by far one of the lowest abortion rates of any other country in Western Europe, about 5.7 abortions per 1,000 women. Compare that with England, which has 16 abortions per 1,000 women, or Sweden, which has upwards of 20 abortions per 1,000 women. In Ireland, there's 1 abortion per 12 births. In England, there's about 1 abortion per every 4 births. Sweden, about 1 abortion in every 3. So clearly the Eighth Amendment is, well, at least symbolic of Ireland's pro-life commitment. Well, now that amendment has been repealed. To the joy and the glee of pro-feminists and abortionists alike, the Irish have made the decision that a child in the womb does not share the same rights under the law as does the mother, and now she's free to terminate the pregnancy as she sees fit. Now here, we on this channel here have long analyzed what we call a mass dialectic going on in the world, a mass dialectic between secular globalism on the one hand and traditionalist nationalism on the other. So in one sense, secular globalism is more powerful than it's ever been in that it's more pervasive and it's fulfilling its logical outworkings such as transgenderism or abortion, radical abortion, feminism, the like. On the other hand, secular globalism is weaker than it's ever been. And that's precisely because its modernist roots have rotted out and that no one buys modernity anymore. No one, particularly in the West, no one believes that modernist scientific rationalism is the one true way of understanding all of reality. However, this hasn't stopped Western elites from seeking to export the fruits of modernity in the form of globalization, in the form of a one-size-fits-all political, economic, and cultural system for all peoples, times, and places. And so there's a massive blowback going on all over the world against secularist globalism, where populations are reasserting their nation's customs, traditions, and religions as mechanisms of resistance against globalization's anti-cultural dynamics and its secular elite aristocracy. And the reason why we give the advantage, the leverage, to traditionalist nationalism is because its traditionalist roots are stronger than ever, while modernity's roots are rotting out. And so we see nothing less than the rise of a traditionalist, nationalist, conservative age going on all over the world. Nonetheless, this vote to repeal the Eighth Amendment and usher in unfettered abortion in Ireland does remind us that there is, in fact, another side to that dialectic. In a dialectical dynamic, there is, whether we like it or not, there's going to be advancement and victory, however limited, on the other side, the secular, corporatist, globalist side. We've seen this here, of course, in the United States plenty of times. The globalists are going to strike back, and they're going to strike hard. They're not going to go quietly into the abyss to which they belong, indeed to which we all belong, but by the grace of God. Having said that, it's not only essential that we recognize that there is another side to this dialectic, the secular globalist side, that's still alive and well for the time being. It will continue to push its bizarre lifestyle values and cultural imperialism on the rest of the world. It's not only essential that we recognize that, it's also essential that we recognize that globalism does all of this to no avail. Globalism's dying. Its modernist roots.
So I wanted to jump in there. You can watch the rest of the video at the link in the description. I do have to disagree with Dr. Turley for a couple reasons. I think he leaves out a dynamic in Irish society and in the societies of some other Western nations that you can't leave them out. You can't neglect them. There are certain countries where religious identity kind of becomes dissolved because the religious institutions themselves are not fully willing to reject certain trends that occur that are detrimental to their own values. In Ireland, yes, they did pass the Eighth Amendment in, I think it was the 1970s, and let's look at over here. So 1983. There was a yes vote of 66%. So, a lot of the people who supported this Eighth Amendment, they were from the mainstream of Irish society. But the fact of the matter is that Irish society on a whole is much more pro-welfare state in favor of an interventionist government than some of the other countries in Europe. Okay, the Irish, having experienced the potato famine in the 19th century, having also gone through obviously the troubles, or there was the Easter Rising, of course, in 1916 and the resistance to Britain, they're not in favor of traditional social hierarchies. If they were, I mean, why would they have rebelled against the crown back then? Why would they have not accepted, a home rule parliament instead of agitating for a republic as they eventually got it? There was a traditionalist Catholic, devout element in Irish society that resisted a lot of these trends, but even in 1983, in a country that is, massively Catholic, there were still a third of the people were in favor of this amendment, or in favor of not getting this amendment, in favor of preventing the banning of abortion. Okay, now fast forward to today. There's this 36th Amendment. It's flipped. What are you going to do? So what happened? As somebody would say, somebody we all know would say. Well, unfortunately, yes, the Catholic Church in Ireland for all those decades, they remained somewhat resistant to the change in society. However, the society at large was kind of, while not rejecting their Catholic identity was more tied to their Irish heritage than it was to, the actual teachings and beliefs of of Rome. So, those of you that are familiar with Ireland, and it's pretty obvious for even the most basic student, Southern Ireland, the Republic, is basically almost entirely Catholic. I think, let me see here. Let's see, religion in Ireland. Yeah. Forgive me for using Wikipedia, but it's fast. So if anybody wants information to dispute this, I mean, you're free to do it. But let me see here. So religions in the Republic of Ireland, 78% Catholic Church. I mean, that's less than I thought, but that's still more than 3/4 of the residents, of the citizens of Ireland. Then you have the Church of Ireland, which is the Anglican Church, basically, 2.6%. Then you have Islam, then you have Orthodox Christianity, then Presbyterianism, Hindu. By that point, you get to people who don't really have much of an effect on the politics of Ireland. Whether it's Islam or Protestant Christianity. I remember the one commentator who said something about this was Graham Norton, who was a Protestant who grew up in Ireland, and he said, it was harder for him to grow up Protestant in Ireland than it was for him to grow up as a gay guy. So it was, I think when at that point it's less of an issue of religion than it is an issue of identity groups, and you can even see here that this is the map of Ireland. The more the more you get into the urban areas, there's Dublin. Higher percentage of people voting for repealing the law. Then you get like into the heartland, like the lighter colored areas that are more, Roscommon. These ones that are more agricultural or out of the way. You get less people who are for it, but it's still an overwhelming majority. What's the only area that voted overwhelmingly against it, or at least, I mean, it wasn't even overwhelming. It was basically, in the area of 50% plus. Is Donegal, which is like it's the barren, remote north. It's one of the, I think it is the least populated county of the Republic of Ireland. You go to Donegal County. I don't know. It might not be the most. It's the 13th out of, well, yeah. So out of 26 counties that are currently part of the Republic, it's one of the middle sized, but there's not much over there, and it's part of Ulster, which is, it's culturally still part of the North, even though it's part of the Republic. For those of you that don't know, Ireland is divided into 32 counties and 4 provinces. The 4 provinces are Leinster, Munster, Ulster, and Connaught. So Connaught is the one to the west. Then you have Munster to the south, Leinster, and then Ulster. So you're really talking about a country that is small. It's kind of geographically a bit idiosyncratic, especially concerning the north. That's why Ireland is divided. You have the Protestant north, and in fact, you have here the north, which is part of the UK, does not believe in abortion. They voted to prevent it, and there's people in Britain right now that are trying to say they're trying to impose abortion on Northern Ireland. Okay, it says the Prime Minister believes that it would be wrong for Westminster to legislate on matters that should be decided by the devolved administration in Belfast. And ministers fear that imposing pro-choice laws on Northern Ireland could backfire. But May is likely to face strong pressure to allow a parliamentary vote, with her cabinet colleague Penny Mordaunt, the Women and Equalities Minister, saying at the weekend that the hope for change in Northern Ireland must be met amid calls for the region to have a referendum. The landslide vote in favor of liberalizing abortion laws in the Irish Republic has put the spotlight on Northern Ireland, which will be the only place in Britain and Ireland where abortion is illegal in most circumstances. The 1967 Abortion Act was never extended to the region, and abortion is only allowed if the life or mental health of the mother is at risk. A Downing Street source said on Monday May believed abortion reform was, quote, an issue for Northern Ireland, and that the problem highlighted the need for the restoration of the power-sharing executive at Stormont, which has been in abeyance since it collapsed in January last year. Rory Stewart, Justice Minister, went further, telling the BBC Sunday Politics that it would be counterproductive for Westminster to legislate on this on this matter. It isn't the job, and it would be very, very dangerous for British politicians to be seen to be telling the people in Northern Ireland how to vote. He said the UK government was acting as a caretaker administration in the absence of a Stormont executive, and that must not be used to make fundamental constitutional ethical changes on behalf of the people in Northern Ireland. But many MPs want the House of Commons to settle the issue, and the Labour MP Stella Creasy has said, okay, maybe her name's pronounced Creasy, but I'm calling her Crazy, has said she intends to force a vote by tabling an amendment to the forthcoming domestic violence bill. So they're tying, then if you vote against it, they're going to say, oh, what, so you're for domestic violence. That's the way they work. Sir Vince Cable, the Liberal Democratic leader, said on Sunday that the deadlock in Northern Ireland meant that the Westminster government was entitled to take the initiative. In Northern Ireland, women have suffered from antiquated, inhumane criminalization for far too long. Theresa May cannot remain silent on this issue, he said. Since there is effectively direct rule from Westminster, the UK government has the responsibility, it can and should take the responsibility to deal with this issue properly. But the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, Arlene Foster, dismissed calls for a referendum. She said, Friday's referendum has no impact upon the law in Northern Ireland, but we obviously take note of issues impacting upon our nearest neighbor. A referendum was held in the Republic of Ireland because of the constitutional prohibition on abortion that existed here. No such constitutional bar exists in Northern Ireland. The legislation governing abortion is a devolved matter, and it is for the Northern Ireland Assembly to debate and decide such issues. Some of those who wish to circumvent the Assembly's role may be doing so simply to avoid its decision. So then under the Sewell Convention, there is a precedent that says the Sewell Convention that the UK government agrees not to intervene in local issues. Sinn Féin, the second largest party in Northern Ireland, supports limited changes to the region's abortion laws. Michelle O'Neill, its leader in Northern Ireland, told ITV that the region was becoming a backwater in terms of rights because of the positions taken by unionists. The unionists, by the way, are the ones who want to keep Northern Ireland part of Britain. Anne Milton, the skills minister, told the BBC that she thought there would be a significant majority in favor of liberalizing the abortion laws in the Commons. Abortion is traditionally a matter on which MPs are given a free vote. Mordaunt tweeted on Saturday, based on the exit poll, a historic and great day for Ireland. and a hopeful one for Northern Ireland. That hope must be met. She did not say she thought it was for the Commons to change the law, but she said in a report in the Sunday Times that she favored MPs having a free vote, as do the 4 previous women and equalities minister: Amber Rudd, Bitch, Justine Greening, Nikki Morgan, and Maria Miller. Sarah Wollaston, the Conservative MP who chairs the Commons Health Committee, said she would personally vote in favor of liberalizing laws in Northern Ireland, but she thought the Commons Speaker might refuse to allow such a vote on the grounds that it was a devolved matter. But as an alternative, MPs should at the very least press for a referendum in Northern Ireland on the matter, she said. Miller has also called for a referendum. In the past, polls have revealed strong support in Northern Ireland for relaxing abortion laws in at least some circumstances, although not to the extent allowed in the rest of the UK. My belief is that if this were to be imposed on Northern Ireland by Westminster, which is by the government in London, it would be a disaster for Theresa May. First of all, she depends for support in her coalition on the Democratic Unionist Party, which is it's the most pro-British party in Northern Ireland. So it would dramatically hurt her chances of staying in power. They would probably leave her coalition, and then there would be a new. She would lose control of the Conservative Party. There would be a new leadership election. But basically, her career would be over if she did this. Okay, the people in Northern Ireland are basically divided between Catholics and Protestants, but a lot of the Protestants are very, very, they're from the Christian right. They're kind of the Steve Turley type of people, and the idea that they would, because of something that the South did, that Britain, from London would impose this on them, it would be a public relations disaster for the Conservative government. And you would see kind of, they're already dealing with the Tommy Robinson episode, which I talked about yesterday, or actually this morning. And the government does not need another issue like this to complicate their already failing agenda at home. People are tired of the British government being, this busybody group, and basically legislating from the top, telling people what they can and can't say. But now, for some reason, we have to extend abortion to Northern Ireland, basically because the Republic of Ireland did it. And the Northern Ireland government is not in session right now because of a coalition problem. So then you're basically saying this, okay? Because one country allowed its citizens to vote, the neighboring country will force citizens of a region that borders the other country to comply by the other country's decision. That's the way it's going to be spun. It doesn't matter if the law is going to be the exact same thing as in Ireland. In the Republic of Ireland. That's the way people are going to perceive it, and it will lead to a massive backlash. Northern Ireland will then become, a lot of this kind of goes into the semantics of, do you believe in direct democracy on major issues or do you not? Okay, the referendum happened. We have to accept the will of the people of Ireland to do it. Even those of us that are not pro-choice like me, or like Dr. Steve Turley, he didn't. You saw his video. He wasn't really belly aching over it, but this is what happens when you have a church that mindlessly sits by and lets progressivism eat society alive. Okay, and in many respects, that's what the church in Ireland did, except for cases where it directly encroached on the church's financial and social power. They didn't prevent Ireland from becoming this cesspool of feminism and idiocy and socialism. They basically were on board with it. They never opposed socialism in Ireland, which is Ireland is very much committed to a large welfare state. They never have, and they're not going to, because it would undermine their position with the remainder of society. The lay people, who are very much They become progressive due to the laxity of the Catholic Church there. So let me know what you think. This was a little longer than I wanted. In fact, it's longer than Turley's video. But, I think it's an interesting topic. And, maybe it's not exactly a theological video, but a lot of Turley's videos, he talks about, Christian civilization and whatever. Well, I think this is a blow to the argument that Christian civilization prevails. This was an own goal. The Catholic Church failed over the years to fight this type of social rot that has happened in Ireland. And they're paying the price, and they should. And unfortunately, I don't know if I should say they should pay the price, but it makes sense that they are. And that's about it. So have a good Sunday. Subscribe, share the video, like the video, and let me know what you think. Leave a comment.